everyone. This is Beatrice, your host of Beyond the Pump, and welcome back to another episode today. So we're currently a couple months into 2026 and we have a full year ahead of us. So some of you who are listening, you might be thinking, "Oh, how do I improve my store design or what can I do to just up my branding this year?" And so if you are asking those questions, it's perfect timing because we today have Joseph Farhat with CVW Lines to join us today. So he can probably, share some of his insights, some of his expert knowledge, and your questions might just be answered. Just to kick us off, Joseph, thank you for joining us today. And I think when people hear CVW Lines, they might not know just exactly what you do. So how about we just start off? Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about CVW Lines.
Beatrice, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the CFCA family as well. So I would say what we are trying to do at CVW Lines, it's a company that we've started over 6 years ago. We are a design, fabricate, build firm for C stores and travel centers. We started, I would say my professional background, actually by trade, I'm an electrical engineer. So back in the day, at some point, I was in tech over a decade ago. But later I moved into my professional background has been in construction. I started in residential construction heavily over a decade ago. And then later went into commercial. And when I was in the commercial space, we realized that there was a big need in the C-store space for something a little bit more holistic and turnkey. We felt, for somebody to have, a lot of the spaces out there, a lot of the C stores are a hodgepodge. They're really old. They look like they're circa 1980s. And for an owner, especially an independent owner that has maybe 2 or 3 or even 6 stores, they needed a unique solution. They needed to have create a design, and they needed to then source all the material, and then they needed to build it. And that was very complicated and it was costly. And so we felt that there was a need in that space to create a full end-to-end solution, a vertically integrated solution. And that's what CVW Lines is. It's a interior design firm, and it's also the fabricator and manufacturer of the cabinets, the shelves, the signage. And we're also the installers. And also our affiliate is the general contractor. So we can take it from 0 to 100 in terms of a transformation, whether it's a remodel or a new build.
That is really cool. I will say I'm not the most knowledgeable in the space that you're referring to, like construction and remodeling and all of that. But learning a little bit about the company, I was very impressed that everything's done in house. And I have a couple questions I want to ask you today. So this was going to be one of the later questions, but I think it's perfect to ask now because, like you mentioned, CVW Lines does design, manufacturing, installation, all in house under one umbrella. I can imagine that's great. That's really helpful for efficiency, right? And could you talk a little bit about why this would be important for store owners, this all in-house, capability?
Absolutely. It was started because of the need. And so let's say you have a store that you recently acquired. It's a 1990s looking store, right? You look across the street, your competition could be a corporate company, right? Which has a unified brand and theme. When you walk into a store, a corporate store or a franchise store, which you are paying a premium when it's a franchise and there's a franchise fee, they have a unified brand and theme. You know what to expect. You always expect a certain type of product, a certain type of experience. Obviously, there's the essentials, like it needs to be functional, it needs to be clean, but it goes beyond that. It's kind of the aura of the store is different and it's higher end, and that appeals to a lot of the newer generations. It appeals to everybody, but right. I think millennials and Gen Zs and the younger generations, they expect a better experience. It needs to be beyond the basics. And so if you're to go back to why that's important, if I was an independent store owner and I wanted to start that, the first thing I need to do is hire a design company. And there are folks out there that do this. But
Right.
what you're going to end up doing is paying a premium to get a design. Okay, they'll give you a good product. I've seen a lot in the market. The challenge then is you're going to take that design and you need to make it into reality. And to bridge it into reality, you need to go, source the material, the cabinets from somewhere, the shelves from somewhere, the decor and the signage that needs to fit your space on top of the cooler, above your front cashier. You need to go to a lighting company. So all of those together, then you need to hand the plan and all the product to a contractor, and you need to pray that you don't have delays, change orders, and things go, mesh well together, right?
Right.
So that's what the advantage of corporate players have. They do it all in house. They have the deep pockets to be able to do that. But if you're an independent and you're growing through two ways, acquisition, and which means old product, and NTIs, which means new builds, and you need to have, and it's important to have them mesh well together from your valuation perspective. So in the future, when you have 10 or 15 stores and you think you want to sell, or you want to refinance, it looks better, and it's better on the books to have a unified brand and theme. So to be able to do that, it's going to cost more. It's more complicated. The buck stops with us when we're doing the project. We're responsible for the design. The design has to mesh well with the product. The fabricator is sitting right across the cube from the designer. So the designer can't create something that is prohibitively expensive or difficult for the fabricator to make. And then the installation team is in-house. So there can't be any pointing of fingers. It's all in-house.
Right.
And same thing when it comes to the construction. We are responsible also for the construction. So if I am bringing a certain type of sign, for example, that requires electrical, I'm doing the electrical in-house, or at least I'm supervising the sub. So there's a lot of complexities in these projects, and having that end-to-end solution makes it more cost-effective, a better experience, and faster time to market. At the end of the day, I don't want to close down a remodel store for 2 months, right? So a lot of our remodels that are just remove and replace, that don't require, MEP, mechanical, electrical, or plumbing, like major stuff, is typically 1 to 2 weeks. And that is very attractive, because at the end of the day, this is a business and it needs to function. So fast time to value, right? You're doing it quickly. It's not cost prohibitive. It's priced right, because it's all meshing well together. It's all one team. And at the same time, you're getting something very unique. You're not getting a hodgepodge of off the market product, because what you see a lot is a lot of consolidators. What do? They buy the same cabinet that you're using at every large franchise, right? Because it's out there. Then you're buying the gondolas from somewhere, the equipment from somewhere, right? And you're just meshing it together. Yeah, it looks new, but it doesn't have a soul. But I want to create the soul and not break the bank and be quick.
Yeah.
I hope that answers that.
That does. And you bring up some great points, because I do agree. I think nowadays branding is what sets you apart from everyone else, right? And it's the ability to make you stand out a little bit more and have that unique edge to you. So this is really, it's personally really fascinating for me. And to your point as well about small businesses, no business, let alone small business, is going to want to stay closed for a long time. As important as remodeling is, the quicker they can open up, the better, obviously. Because, your bottom line as a small business owner is just, it's very important. And I'm curious, because you said, CVW T-Lines has been around for about 6 years now. That kind of aligns with COVID. So did you see any I'm sure you did, supply challenges, sourcing, installation, and did any of that you saw change how you're operating today? Now, this might be a loaded question, but it's just, COVID was crazy for everyone, so I'm sure it was for you too.
Absolutely. I think with a lot of the changing prices, you're not in charge of your supply chain. So right now, let's say and we have these large stores right now, travel centers, 8,000 square feet, 15,000 square feet. We're even doing a 24,000 square foot pilot, right? So when you have that type of size, or let's say you have 3 remodels and you're trying to, plan them for 2026, sourcing all the material and not being at the mercy of the changing of pricing out in the market is key, right? And so the fact that we are doing this in-house and we're doing the fabrication gives us a good line of sight on, and these projects, like sometimes we might sign a deal right now, you and I right now, and we're going to install it in mid 2027. So what do I do? Right? Or
Yeah.
it could be until 2028. And I don't want your budget to change drastically then. So that allows us to fabricate in a smart way. What does that mean? 80 to 90% of what we fabricate is what we call like the stock item. And the rest is modular. So for example, 80 to 90% of your gondola, right, is a standard one. But that 10 to 15% or 10 to 20% that goes on top that's modular makes it very unique. It has your branding. I have the plexis on the end cap that etch your logo, right? And makes it unique. That allows me, the fact that I'm thinking when I fabricate very much with a design hat and in a project hat makes us more efficient from a supply chain. And so to answer your question, yes, we did see a lot of disruptions, and we like to look at projects as in a holistic way, and the ability to produce everything for a project. And we actually ship a project together. Like, let's say I'm doing, one store, we'll package everything and we'll ship it to our warehouse, one of our many warehouses, together with, each project item just labeled specific to that project, which makes it easier, right, to manage.
Yeah. Very interesting. So it's almost like deconstructed and then you get on site and then it gets constructed.
100%. Even the signs on top of the coolers or anything in the decor that we do, we have a staging area. So we have the fabrication, and then before it's shipped, we have staging area where we stage it and we make sure it's designed and fabricated per, the measurements, and it's looking like it's supposed to. And then we wrap it and then we ship it.
Wow. Okay, I just have this is a side question. More for my curiosity, because you said you came from, is it like it's electrical engineering, right? And construction?
Yeah, like what I studied. I studied electrical engineering, and as many years ago, giving, my age out a little bit, many years ago, I was in software and startups. But then I quickly moved into construction, specifically residential, and then kind of morphed into commercial.
Okay. I'm assuming, is designing what you do, like C-stores, is that a favorite of yours? Is there a reason why you have chosen to do this for multiple years now and probably for the foreseeable future? Is there a reason? Is it just like, oh, it's a passion?
Yeah, I'll tell you, my passion is construction. The reason I moved, I like time-tested things. I like tangible things. When I come in and I recreate a space, when I put a design that's really in the ether, right? It's on a computer, it's in a video, it's in a rendering, and you make it reality. That's a passion of mine. And I think a lot of people appreciate that, right? In a digital world that we live in, I think at the end of the day, we still like that touch and connection and seeing things and feeling things. And so transforming a space is a passion of mine. I like the C-store space because it's very dynamic. So I think it's one of those spaces that, people underappreciate and don't understand how valuable and it's important. A lot of these C-stores are the neighborhood markets. It's not just trying to get a slice of pizza at a gas station. That's not how a lot of people see it. You go to some, areas, Northern California, Central Valley, Southern California, a lot of these stores have a very personal connection to their neighborhoods. The person working there, the owner, they know the neighborhood, and people go in there to buy, food, buy groceries, sometimes produce. We're seeing, by the way, a huge move by a lot of cities asking C-store owners to be more on the grocery side. So as the grocery space went also more corporate, some areas are underserved. And who is filling that gap, a very important gap, is C stores, right? So you're not only getting your gas, but you're getting Tide, you're getting soap,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
you're also getting whatever it is, the liquor, the food. So and especially when we start to think, there's always this push about, farm to table.
Mm.
I mean, this is the farm to table model. You want everything to be local and close, right?
Right.
And personable. And that's what a lot of these stores are. And, it doesn't matter whether the type of fuel, alternative fuel, more EV, the hybrid, stores are here to stay, right? I think,
Mm.
they're recession proof too, right? Economies doing well, C stores do well typically.
Mm-hmm.
And economy doesn't do well, they're still pretty healthy in terms of their sales.
Right. And I mean, talk about, keeping it local, 95%. We did a study back in 2023 and it found 95% of, stations run in California are independently owned. So it's also then that piece of it's locally owned, not only locally sourced, but locally owned. I mean, it's just really cool.
Absolutely.
The way saying it
Absolutely.
sounds really cool. And it's, to be part of a community like that, it's just so full circle.
Yeah,
So that's great.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, I mean, this is the definition. A lot of the owners are the definition of entrepreneurship and the American dream.
Mm.
Honestly, you have so many that just started, as an employee for
Mm-hmm.
the oil companies when the oil companies were still managing and running their own stores, and then they had the opportunity to build it on their own, and now they
Mm-hmm.
have their little empires, right, in terms
Mm-hmm.
of the number of stations, and they're giving back to the community in that sense. So I think it's definitely, in my opinion, a very underrated space that is very essential in our market.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And talking about the market or demographic that you're serving, it sounds like you obviously work on C stores, you also work on travel centers. And in my mind, when it comes to travel centers, those are, there's a lot of trucks coming through, more heavy duty vehicles that come through there. Is there a difference when you're doing your piece of store design and all of that, is there a difference between working on a C store project versus a travel center project? Or is it pretty much all the same?
There's definitely an overlap. I would say for like a travel center truck stop, there's the element of we're seeing, a larger dining area, right? So
Mm.
like, let's say it's 8,000 square feet and it's kind of split in half. There's the typical C store with an element of like grocery and even produce, some electronics in there, right? In terms of the product variety and how it's designed to highlight those products. But on the other side, you have a food court that
Mm-hmm.
is serving families, that needs to be very attractive, good looking. It needs to be appealing, right? If you're stopping on the highway off of the 5, the 99, the 405, and you're getting gas, you want to stop for a meal, right? And a lot of people commute. I mean, Thanksgiving, whether it's the big events or on a daily basis for family trips, it's
Mm-hmm.
still one of the main ways people, move around in our state, especially in California. So travel centers more and more are becoming larger, cleaner, nicer. The bathroom, super clean, well designed, can be unique. Things don't have to look boring.
Yeah.
But to answer your question on the travel center side, definitely we're seeing like in some travel centers we have up to 5 QSRs in there.
What are can you this might be a
Quick,
gap in my
yeah.
knowledge, but QSRs, yes, what are those?
So quick service restaurants. So like your,
Okay.
Fat Burger, Dunkin' Donuts, all these different
Got
brands
it.
in there.
Okay.
So it's when you're stopping there, you're not only getting the gas or the diesel or the shower, for a lot of the truck
Mm,
drivers, and then there's a
right.
lounge that we're
Yeah.
designing. But you also have this different product variety out there, right?
Mhm.
And it's a food court, like in the same family. Let's say it's a family of five. Two of them want, fried chicken, and the others want something else, like a salad. And you have different options there, and it's
Right.
in one food court. So it's a really nice experience. But we're really focused on that. And think about it, even when people talk about other types of fuel, or even, a lot of them have EV stations, right? Anybody that's
Hmm.
charging for like 10 or 20 minutes has to stop. And so that's why these stores are getting larger as well. So
Mm,
it serves everybody.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good point. Like you said, these stores are around. They're here to stay around, and it's
They're
just
here
how
to
are
stay.
they? Yeah, and how are they going to evolve? So this kind of brings me to my next question, which I'm curious about because obviously with consumers, it's there are ways, I'm guessing you're probably the expert of this, of how you can um, direct them to have certain behaviors, maybe when they walk into a store, that sort of thing. Can you talk a little bit about how you design a store around customer behavior rather than just square footage? So you're prioritizing the person versus, because space limitation is a reality, especially in California. So how do you shift that and you're more focusing on the experience of a customer?
Absolutely. I think one, we talk, there are certain fundamentals, definitely. One of the fundamentals, it has to be organized. The flow has to make sense. Where you're getting, your coffee and the type of products around the coffee, like the baked goods, the bakery, where the hot food is located, the type of equipment that we sometimes suggest based on what we're seeing. And a lot of times if it's a remodel, a lot of times it's talking to the managers. They are the subject matter experts in the store. They understand the neighborhood, especially the ones that have been there for a while. And a lot of the managers typically have been sticking around, and they understand their clientele. So not all C stores are the same, even within the same brand. So let's say, we have, your specific brand, and, it has a very hip feeling to it, right? And it's a very modern look. Well, if it's a stop right outside of the 99 next to farms, it has to have a local element. So we try, as part of the decor, as part of the design, to have something unique. Sure, it's that same brand, which is your brand, but also something of the local flavor, because at the end of the day, it is serving the local community, right? So a
Hmm.
lot of times in the decor, that's reflected. Like if it's an area where there's a lot of hiking or outdoor activities, you give it that outdoor feel. If it's in a city center and it's a smaller C store, you want to give it an industrial look. So there's
Mm,
definitely essentials that are key, and where your brand needs to be consistent, you know across the store. And if I go to one store that you have in the Bay Area, and there's another one in the Fresno area, I can tell it's the same store and I know what to expect. But at the same time, it has to have a local feel.
yeah. I mean, again, once again, bringing back to the local piece, I think it is what makes, someone who walks in who's from the area feel a little bit like, they're at home. It's
Exactly.
their regular spot. It's somewhere that's familiar. So that's great to hear. And so, we've been kind of talking generally now. So if we're to talk a little bit more specific, have you seen consumer expectations with convenience stores? Have they changed over the years, the 6 years that you've been doing this? And if so, have you had to tweak certain design elements to meet those expectations or those needs?
Definitely, we're seeing a lot of the younger generation expect a certain set of products in there, and a lot of owners are incorporating that. I think also I know I keep coming back to it, but like the bathroom experience, a lot of people stop. So, I mean, what's your decision making on stopping at a station? Price of gas is definitely one of the key factors, right? If you're getting gas, right? But then right after that, you're thinking about, is the place clean?
Mm,
And is it functional? Do I feel that it's safe, right? And usually, if a place looks very beat up, if you have cracked floor tiles, if it looks like it's from 20 years ago, that turns people off. So we're seeing a lot of pressure on a lot of owners to because their competition opening right across the street, especially if it's a franchise, is contrasting that. And we also do
Mm.
franchises, by the way. We help with the construction of franchises as well. So it's independents and franchise owners that we help. But definitely
Hmm.
we're seeing pressure on that and having that experience. And it's I think the younger generation with, everybody uses now Instagram, TikTok, uh, you're held to a different level. Just like we saw it in the taxi service industry with Uber, and everybody can get tagged, and everybody has a rating, whether it's
Hmm.
your Google profile or what people post about your brand, that matters. And the strongest players are the ones that create a following. And so
Mm.
creating a following that can go, I don't want to say super viral, but a certain following of people that think, something is cool and they expect to have a certain experience, or you have a unique product and you're constantly pivoting and you're thinking about the new product that's out there and putting it out there. It could be, as simple as a milkshake, or, adding a Dubai chocolate product in there. That
Yeah.
matters, right?
Right.
So that's on
Right.
the product side. But you can get the best type of product, but if your store is all cluttered and stuffed and it looks old, that won't matter, right?
Mm.
It's
Hmm.
not the amount of product that you put in. It has to be done in a way that's appealing. There's a reason why, sometimes when you go shopping for clothes and you see a place that's so cluttered with clothing, it turns you off. And it's the same thing. It's not just the quantity, it's obviously the quality and the way it's presented. Presentation matters, right?
Right. It's like leaving a good impression,
Exactly.
as a brand. And
Yeah.
so when you're talking about brands, you're we're if I were to think about I have a brand, then then this is my brand. But then there's what a bajillion other brands, obviously, that you're also like you're talking about competitors, right? That you're competing against essentially. Do you have any tips or tricks or best practices in terms of how you help balance brand consistency while standing out from your competitors? Is there any tips or tricks, or is it depends on each brand?
I would say, look, a lot of people have like a unique name to their store or to their brand. And sometimes it could be by store. It's, what do I want to remember you with?
Mm-hmm.
You want people to leave remembering you with something positive, right? And so there are the basics, and you definitely, if you don't have the basics, those need to be tackled. But then there needs to be an additional hook, because we see that that does matter on the revenue numbers and the spend numbers. There's been a lot of studies. I'm sure CFCA has done a lot of studies. You will see that it makes a difference, right? So, and that's why the competitors and the big brands and the corporate owners are doing that across the U.S. And it goes more to like California. California, in my opinion, there's a shortage of C stores, right? I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
there's like 12,000 for the state.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times in certain markets, you cannot build a new one. Yeah,
Mm.
they won't allow you to build a new one. So you have to make do with what you have, and what you have needs to have a nice punch, or else people are just going to get gas and leave. You want to invite them in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it does matter. That money goes a long way, and a lot of it is tax deductible too,
Hey, a nice
right?
little, a nice perk, a nice bonus. I mean, yeah, I'm sure from the network that you get to work with, but a lot of it's kind of a myth, I guess you could call it. But gas station owners don't make their bulk from the pump. A lot of it's from what's in store.
That's right.
So it is going in store, engaging there, spending your dollars there that helps keep these small businesses open, and all that. So yeah, you do bring up a
Absolutely. I
good
mean,
point.
and to add to what you're saying, you're going to have
Mm-hmm.
an ebb and flow, right? What needs to be the bread and butter is that store experience. That's going to keep people coming back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a following, and if you have a nice experience and a unique experience that people will remember you by, they'll be there when times are tough.
Yeah, right. I mean, it kind of reminds me of we talked about COVID earlier, but when COVID was, the thick of COVID, convenience store gas stations were considered essential businesses, so they stayed open. So, I'd imagine if you live in a community where there's a couple that's within the same driving distance, the determining factor would be what's my regular, and maybe how that person chooses their regular store is by brand, cleanliness, all the things that you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Um, Very interesting stuff. Okay, this is making me also wonder, from because our listenership, it's everyone. So if there's any consumers listening, I feel like your perspective would be very insightful. So for any consumers listening, what should they start to pay attention to when they walk into a convenience store, into a well-designed convenience store? Is there anything that you think, as a person who's walking in for the first time, if they just pay attention, they'll be like, oh, there's all these details that I never noticed before.
So I think I definitely how well organized and how the flow is. If you walk in, I mean, and you're asking about a consumer, right? An end consumer that's buying at a C store, what they should look at. If a place is very cluttered, I would imagine that's usually, it's not just the volume of product you put out there. Consumers really care about, at least the consumers that we've talked to, and based on our discussions with our clients, they care about organized, they care about having things stocked, and people make their impression within the first 30 seconds when they walk into a store,
Mm,
right? If they
yeah.
see a certain area is dirty, they're going to automatically assume subconsciously, I don't want to buy a sandwich here, right?
Mm,
So how you upkeep a place will really matter. And I think consumers look at that. The bathroom, especially on truck stops and travel centers, is key. Some brands even, highlight that as expect clean bathrooms. Like I've literally seen some brands just put that. But I think, you'll see that in certain brands have done a fantastic job at taking, rebranding themselves and making themselves look very modern, and appealing to the demographic that they know is stopping at their stores, right?
hmm
And when you think of that, I think it goes very far. They really understand the customer, and they have had partners like ourselves to work with them in basically putting the store identity through store design, right? Because
mm,
brand identity, right, is your experience with the people that work there. It's great customer experience. It's how well you stock your store, the type of product you put in your store, but also it's expressed through the store design. And that means the decor, it means the fixtures that are there, that look really unique. Like when you walk into a lot of the stores that we design, the cabinetry has LED lighting. It looks modern. It looks clean. It highlights the product. It has a modern look. The wallpaper matches, the cabinetry matches, the lighting. Lighting is key. How we highlight products and the store experience through lighting. There's a lot of types of lighting out there. We don't have to buy the same exact fixtures everywhere, right?
hmm
So you can work with little things that are within the budget, right? Same thing with the signage. I know that when I go to a beer cave, I'm going to see beer cave. But if I have something that's unique written there, that I will remember, because subconsciously we remember these things, that is unique to
mm,
your brand,
yeah,
that matters.
right. It's funny as you're saying all this, I'm just going, oh my gosh, yeah, when you design a home too, because I just moved into a home last year, so I'm also really thinking, yeah, I should consider lighting and textures, and just how to make it almost, well, in the C-store world, or the store world, it really is how to make it feel like the brand is embracing you almost as a consumer as you walk in. um
Yep.
Yeah, now you just got my brain thinking. But anyways, as we're coming up to the end of the episode here, I still have a couple questions I do want to just have your take on. If there's any business owners or store owners listening and they're thinking about maybe doing a little redesign in the next couple years, and they want to start planning now, what would your advice be to them? Your words of wisdom, your tips so that they are fully prepared for the process.
Absolutely. I think number one is you don't want to start thinking like it's like when you're trying to write an essay, you don't want to quickly start writing. The outline makes the biggest difference, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
plan makes the biggest difference, and the plan starts with a design. And I'm not talking about a 2D layout. You need a 3D design. You need to be able to imagine it and see it. And there's a lot of tools out there that we use to do the design. So you start with a 3D design, and a lot of people are everybody's getting more and more tech savvy, and everybody's starting to use AI tools. So I'll have a lot of people use, Gemini, ChatGPT, or Claude to create their own logo, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
how they're brainstorming. And I think that's such a cool new thing that's happening. I have owners that will just like send me logos that I know they've used one of these AI tools, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's so cool. So you take that and you put it with a design team and you start designing with purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can I put that logo, that brand inside the store? And so I suggest that a lot of people need to start with that 3D design. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people that say they're doing a design and all they're providing is just a 2D layout on CAD or in PDF. That's not enough. To me, that's not a design. You need to be able to see it either in a video or in PDF on how it's going to look like. And it better
Mm-hmm.
and you'd want to see if whoever you're working with has worked with a fabricator or is a fabricator, which I recommend. Obviously, that's, I'm biased here, right? That's what we're doing.
Right.
So you don't want to create something that looks great on rendering, but then is very difficult and cost prohibitive to install, because then you're going to have a contractor telling you, yeah, that rendering looks good, that design looks good, but it's going to be 3 change orders to be able to do it. Or that product doesn't actually fit the design that you have. And that's what we've had. We've had clients come to us with designs. They've worked with other designers and they're like, can you make this a reality? Because when they've given it to a contractor, it
Mm-hmm.
was too difficult. And they have 2 options. They either have to bite the bullet and come and spend a lot and hope that it works, or they're like, okay, that was not a good exercise. I'm not going to go with something that unique. I'm going to be just a hodgepodge of the regular product out there, the same cabinets that everybody else uses, the same shelving that everybody uses, and it
Mm-hmm.
has absolutely no soul, right?
Right.
So I would definitely recommend that owners start with a design and work with a partner that can implement that design at cost and at speed.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, I'd imagine, with remodels, it's definitely a costly process, but worthy process that you wouldn't want to feel like you're sacrificing certain elements that you want as part of your brand.
We're not trying to sell designs. We're not in the business of trying to sell designs. We have a very, compared to what I see in market prices, a very well priced and affordable at cost design fee, because at the end of the day, we want to get to the transformation. We're not trying to
Mm-hmm.
sell a design. We're trying to sell a solution, a transformation, and the implementation. So,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of folks out there are charging, $6 and $7 a square foot for a design, which will scare a lot of people away, right? And that's not what we do. We create the same and even better quality at a different, more affordable price. And if you're a CFCA member, you'll get the CFCA deal, obviously. But
Yes.
we get the design out from the time they give us their blueprint or their floor plan, or even if they don't have one, it's a remodel. We'll send somebody, we'll measure it, we'll do a 3D scan of the store, and we're able to create a rendering within 2 weeks. And from there, they have a rendering that shows them the reality, and then it has an estimate attached to it that can make it a reality. And I think I've showed you examples of, before and after and the
Yeah,
design in between.
fascinating.
And at the end of the day, people can go on our website, transformmycstore.com, and they can see examples of before and afters, and of a real-time walkthrough of stores that we've actually implemented. And they're not renderings, they're actual 3D capture of the space using a 3D camera. So I think it's very important that people can see what they're going to get before they actually sign up for something.
Yeah, and a lot of people I meet are visual people, so
Yeah.
I can only imagine that actually does, work in your favor and just helps to, you know, move the process along so you kind of know what to expect. Um, wow, that's a lot of helpful information I've learned for sure. And before we officially wrap up, although we could probably talk about this for hours, Joseph, if I'm being honest, because I have a couple more like just personal questions I might have to ask you offline, but we have some rapid fire questions for you. And
Sure.
so I say it's rapid fire, but really maybe we'll have you pick one of the three that we have
Mm-hmm.
today, and you can just choose which one you want to answer. All right, you ready?
Ready.
Okay, so pick one of the three to answer as rapid fire. So either one, a design trend you're excited about right now. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, what's your favorite convenience store purchase? Or number three, what's the most underrated part of a convenience store?
Okay. I think I think I kind of touched on some of these, but I'll
Mm-hmm.
say the one design trend I'm excited about is, like I mentioned earlier, people using AI tools to do some designs on their own and partaking in a very active way in the brainstorming of designs.
Mm,
I think using those tools, people are able to contribute, and that is having, we'll just put them on the phone with our designers, and we'll brainstorm, and we'll try to take some of the small pieces that they've created into reality. I
mm,
think that, that's something I'm super excited about, and I think it's a trend. It's going to continue to move forward. I think, with all these tools out there, people are going to have a better way of expressing what their visions are beyond words.
yeah, yeah. It's just so magnificent you can't find the words to describe it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I mean, it's kind of like a way to infuse a little bit of yourself into the brand and being able to visually see like, okay, is this how I feel it's going to be, or do we need to tweak anything? Um,
exactly.
so that makes sense. That makes sense. I'm curious. I'm curious to see if throughout the years we see this, you know, an upward trend, just that keeps getting more popular. Could be.
100. I mean, AI is here to stay in every industry. We're going to see an impact, and
Right.
we're already starting to see it in a lot of white collar jobs, and we're seeing it also in the fact that people are using that intelligence at their fingertips to help in their businesses, and I
Hmm.
frankly see it as a net positive for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Completely agree. Um, okay, well, Joseph, that was our conversation. I really enjoyed it. But before we let you go, can you let people know if they want to find you, connect with you, where can they do that? And if you have any last words of wisdom you'd like to share, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you very much for setting this up. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I can't
Likewise.
believe the time has already passed.
I know.
And that's props to you for conducting this. The best way for people to reach out, our website has all of our information, transformmycstore.com. They could reach out to me personally as well. My phone number is listed on there. I put my phone number and the company phone number on there. And they could also, email us, and there's a chat option. So I think our website has all of our information that includes the phone number. Yeah, and we try to, the URL handle is pretty easy, transformmycstore.com, which will
Has a
take
good
you to our
ring.
main site.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Joseph, for joining us for an episode of Beyond the Pump. And thank you all for listening.